4 engines that aren't from some startup, not a low-volume niche platform nobody's heard of. These are engines sitting in America's best-selling trucks and family cars right now. And every single one of them has a documented failure mode that can end with you on the shoulder of a highway. I'm not talking about a recall notice you'll ignore in the mail. I'm talking about engines where the actual repair, full replacement, not a gasket, is now a legitimate possibility inside your ownership window. I've spent 20 years under vehicles. Here's the framework. 4 engines ranked by one number. How likely you are to pay for a full engine replacement out of your own pocket before 100,000 miles. Not horsepower, not brand loyalty. Real risk to your wallet, and in some cases, your safety. We're starting with the one that already has a recall in motion, and working up to the one that's cost its manufacturer more than $1 billion and still isn't settled. Number 4. General Motors 6.2-liter V8 L87. Nearly 878,000 GM trucks and SUVs are sitting inside a federal investigation into sudden engine failure. The number that should worry you isn't the recall count. It's the mileage. Some of these engines have failed with under 1,200 miles on the clock. No warning light, no rough idle, just gone. I had a customer bring in his Silverado last spring. 40,000 miles, meticulous maintenance records, oil changed every 5,000 miles like clockwork. Rod bearing let go on the highway at 70 miles an hour. He didn't get a knock, a shudder, or a check engine light. He got a dead pedal in the middle lane. The engineering here is frustrating because the LE87 isn't a bad architecture. It's GM's proven small block formula, direct injected and mild hybrid assisted, and when the bearings are right, it's a strong, quiet, capable truck engine. The problem is a documented manufacturing window, March 2021 through May 2024, where sediment got left in the oil galleries and crankshafts came off the line outside of spec. Compare that to Ford's 5.3-liter equivalent in the same class. Similar price, similar capability, and no federal bearing investigation attached to it. The weakness: any L87 built inside that 2021 to 2024 window. GM says engines built after the fix are clean, and there's no way to confirm that from the driver's seat except your build date and a straight answer from the dealer. Buyer's checklist. Pull the build date against the known defect window. Ask the dealer directly whether your VIN falls under recall. N25249401. And don't accept "we'll just change the oil" as a real fix. Ideal owner: someone buying new, post-fix, with the recall paperwork already closed out. Not someone inheriting a 2022 with an unknown history. If you've made it this far, you're clearly someone who reads the recall notice instead of tossing it. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one, because the pattern only gets worse from here. Number 3. Honda 1.5-liter turbo, Earth Dreams. Honda sold more than 3 million of these engines, and the failure mode isn't a bad batch. It's built into the design. On short trips and cold mornings, unburned gasoline washes past the rings faster than it can cook off, and it ends up thinning out the oil in the crankcase. Do enough short trips and that oil stops doing its job. I had a rideshare driver bring in her CR-V daily airport runs, 10 minutes each way, engine barely getting warm before she shut it off. Oil level was reading over full on the dipstick. That's not oil, that's oil cut with gasoline. She was one bad cold snap away from a bearing failure she'd never have seen coming. Give Honda credit. The block underneath is genuinely durable, and the transmission and drivetrain around it hold up fine. The Turbo 4 itself is fuel efficient and strong for its size. The dilution problem is specifically a byproduct of chasing economy numbers with a driving pattern short trips, cold starts that Honda's own engineers apparently didn't tune hard enough against. Compare it to Toyota's naturally aspirated 2.5-liter in the RAV4. Slightly less efficient on paper, no documented dilution defect, no open class action tied to the block. The weakness: any 2016 to 2023 Civic, CR-V, or Accord with the 1.5T that's mostly driven on short trips. Highway commuters see less of this. City drivers see it constantly. Buyer's checklist: check the oil level on the dipstick before you even start the test drive. Ask for maintenance records showing shorter oil change intervals, and budget for an aftermarket catch can if you're buying one anyway. Ideal owner: someone who drives mostly highway miles, changes the oil more often than the sticker says, and isn't using this as a 10-minute grocery getter. I'm not ranking these engines by horsepower or brand reputation. I'm ranking them by one number: how many miles you get before the manufacturer's own paperwork admits. There's a problem. That's the only math that matters when you're signing a loan. Number 2. Toyota 3.4-liter twin-turbo V6 V35A. Toyota spent 5 decades building the reputation of the safe, boring, bulletproof choice. Then it replaced the Tundra's V8 with this twin-turbo V6 in 2022, and broke that reputation in 3 years. More than 270,000 Tundras, Lexus LX SUVs, and Lexus GX SUVs are now covered across 3 separate recall campaigns, all for the exact same failure: leftover manufacturing debris lodged against the number 1 main bearing. I had a family bring in a brand new 2024 Tundra, 18,000 miles, no modifications, towing a small camper on weekends. Knocking noise on cold start turned out to be exactly the debris issue Toyota's been recalling trucks for since 2024. They were told to wait for symptoms to worsen before the dealer would even schedule the teardown. Underneath the debris problem, this is a genuinely strong engine, more torque than the old V8, better towing numbers, and Toyota has redesigned the bearing on engines built from July 2024 onward. That's the frustrating part. The fix exists. It's just not applied retroactively. Compare it to the outgoing 5.7-liter V8 Tundra, or to Ram's 5.7 Hemi, both with a decade-plus track record and 0 main bearing recalls attached. The weakness: any Tundra, LX, or GX built before July 2024. As of mid-2026, Toyota still doesn't have a finalized repair procedure for the newest recall wave. You may be told to just keep driving until it fails. Buyer's checklist: check the build date against July 2024. Ask specifically whether your VIN falls under campaign 25TB14 or 25TA14, and get it in writing what happens if the knock shows up next month instead of next year. If you've made it this far, you already know more about these engines than most finance managers do. Hit subscribe. Number 1. Hyundai and Kia Theta II. Hyundai and Kia have already paid out more than $1.3 billion over this engine family, and a second settlement 2 years later added 2.1 million more vehicles to the list. The failure mode is debris left in the crankshaft oil passages, choking off lubrication to the connecting rod bearings. Under load, the bearing fails. In the worst documented cases, the engine doesn't just seize, it catches fire while the car is being driven. I had a family bring in a Santa Fe with the knock sensor update already installed, supposedly the fix. 6 months later, it stalled out in an intersection with the youngest kid in the back seat. No warning light, no prior symptoms, just gone. This engine family covers the Sonata, Tucson, Elantra, Veloster, Optima, Sorento, Soul, and Sportage, which means the risk isn't confined to one nameplate. It's spread across nearly the entire lineup for almost a decade of production. Compare it to Mazda's Skyactiv 4-cylinder in the same class, similar power, similar price bracket, and nothing close to $1 billion bearing settlement attached to it. The weakness: this saga started with lawsuits in 2017. 9 years later, Hyundai is facing fresh federal scrutiny over stalling complaints in current Tucson and Santa Fe models. Proof the fixed generation still isn't fully fixed. Buyer's checklist: confirm the knock sensor software update was actually installed, get the extended 15-year, 150,000-mile bearing warranty in writing, and don't assume a newer model. Year means a newer problem doesn't apply. Ideal owner: someone who verifies every piece of that paperwork before signing, and who understands that a fix on file isn't the same as a fix that's finished. GM: pull the build date, confirm the recall's closed, don't accept an oil change as a real fix. Honda: mostly highway miles or budget for the dilution problem. Toyota: anything before July 2024 is still waiting on Toyota to finish the repair. Hyundai and Kia: verify the software update, get the warranty in writing, and remember this started in 2017. The badge on the hood tells you nothing anymore. What matters is the build date, the paperwork, and whether the fix on file is actually finished. Drive safe.